With every generation of almost every technology, there tends to be a default option. The option that for most people it would work great, that you can recommend to them easily. And while it might not be perfect for everyone, for the people that you recommend it to, they generally would have no complaints. In the world of 3D printing, the Bamboo Labs printers are a good example of this. Everyone just recommends them, even if they're not absolutely perfect for every single user. And in the world of small form factor PC cases, there also tends to be a default option, though this changes every 1 or 2 years or so. A couple of years ago, it was probably the Dan A4, the OG one. Then it probably became the Cooler Master NR200 and the NR200P and V2. Then it probably became the Ian Lee Dan A4 H2O at some point, original N-Case M1 at some point. And in more recent times, it probably went along the likes of the Fractal Terra, though that was short-lived because everyone quickly realized you can't cool anything properly in the Terra. Now in 2025, if you ask on Reddit, this default option will probably be one of two answers, the Form T1 or this, the N-Case M2. Now the N-Case T1 or the Form T1 is really popular, but I personally think the N-Case M2 is the better option for anyone that wants the default case that works for most people that you really don't have any worries or qualms about. And that's because the default option for a small form factor PC, in my opinion, needs to fulfill 3 important criteria. And the M2 fulfills it the most. Number 1, the default option needs to be able to fit today's best hardware, the latest and greatest, without too much complication. Number 2, it needs to look good but not crazy exciting and not be crazily out there, since most small form factor PC builders want something clean and simple and minimalistic. And number 3, it needs to be easily accessible with a somewhat reasonable price. And I think the M2 fits all 3 of these criteria the most, making it basically the best small form factor ITX case to recommend to the most people in 2025. Let's start with point number 1. And the M2 can fit a 5090, the best CPU on the market, and keep it cool with either a 120mm tower cooler like the Thermalright Peerless Assassin 120 or a 240mm all-in-one water cooler, basically effortlessly. You can mount radiators in the top, the bottom, the sides, and you can adjust where they go precisely to how you need. So if you wanted to build a custom loop, you can, but if you wanted to keep it simple and just add more fans for better airflow, you can as well. And because it's not the smallest PC case ever, fitting all these parts aren't a super difficult, super complex matter. Sure, some 5090s will not fit in the N-Case M2, but a lot of them will. Whereas with something like the T1, you need to get a Founders Edition, if not, well, it won't fit. Which does limit your options and add to the cost, making it less of a general majority friendly option and making the M2 shine a little bit more. And because the M2 is not obsessed with being as small as possible, which the T1's very good at, mind you, it also makes it a lot easier to build in. You get a ton of adjustability. You can support up to a ITX motherboard in the M2, which is great, and you can run the motherboard in a variety of layouts. The manual online breaks it all down, but you can have it in a normal motherboard layout, a flipped one, so the GPU can get fresh air from the top of the case, or you can even use a PCIe riser and a vertical GPU mount to fit select GPUs that can't quite fit in a normal traditional layout, or if you want a specific airflow setup. Personally though, half of the reason why I got the M2 was because it didn't need to use a riser. That reduces cost and reduces complication, and it's one less point of failure, which is important since this PC I've built in it is going to be my backup PC, and reliability is going to be important. And that's why I think it makes a great contender for a default option. And if you're concerned about cooling, it is great. It's heavily perforated, especially if you get that greater front panel, which I think looks really great. Horrible pun not intended, but you get amazing airflow and you can keep things cool pretty easily without really thinking about it. If there is one thing I have to complain about with the build experience though, is that I wish there were more cable tie-down points in the N-Case M2. Because there is very little clearance behind the motherboard tray, if you tie the cable tie to the tray itself, the side panel wouldn't close properly, and there's just not enough tie-down points for me to have a very clean cable routing, which is why my rig looks like a mess of spaghetti wires. I'll work on it in the future, but right now I'm too broke, too busy, and heading into school, so I probably won't. The second criteria is that the case needs to look good without looking too exciting. And the M2 is absolutely that. Not only does it look good, it's got a couple of options of how it can look. You can get the curved flat front with greater, if you want it to look a bit more Apple-esque, and have additional airflow and an option to mount another fan at the front. This is the option I personally would recommend spending a little bit more on. And last but not least, you can get these slates just like on the OG N-Case M1, though as far as I can tell on Reddit, that option seems to be much less popular since I think a lot of people have gotten bored of looking at the N1, so something different is great. And while the N-Case M2 looks good, I personally don't think it's very exciting to look at. I mean, it's classy, it's clean, it's stylish, but it's very understated, which for a piece of furniture is usually what most people want nowadays in our messy, messy lives. So, do I like the N-Case M2? Well, the answer is yes. I think as a recommendation, this is one of the most no-brainer, straightforward, simple, just go and get it options on the market for small form factor PC cases. The thing is built well, looks good, and it's small enough for most people without being so small that its support is difficult to deal with, complicated, or hard to build in. Well, I would absolutely recommend it objectively to most SFF PC builders. The N-Case M2 isn't something that I love, which I have to admit. The N-Case M2 is designed as the bread and butter for basically every small form factor PC builder. A jack of all trades, but a master of none. It doesn't have a particular unique niche or edge to it, it just does everything quite well. It doesn't like abuse me the same way a Fractal Terra does with its horrible cooling. It doesn't impress me with insane density the same way a formed T1 does. It doesn't wow me with some insane design the same way a Thorzone Nanook might do. And it just kinda is. It's like the correct answer that's for most people. And that's perfectly fine. If you're looking for a small form factor PC, go for it, you won't regret it. But for me, small form factor PC cases need to have some sort of edge, some sort of extremeness. After all, when the PC case is this small, it's going to be extreme no matter what. And instead of trying to make it work for everyone and be like the perfect Goldilocks sweet spot case, 8 out of 10 on every front, I'd rather my small form factor PC case just try to achieve some sort of headline with their build. Because small form factor PC cases are an act of balancing, of working within tight requirements, and when you have tight restrictions that prevent you from doing everything that you want, that's when the character of the designer really comes through with their flair, the way of doing things, and the way of prioritizing things. With the Terra, Fractal was prioritizing design and flair over practicality. With the Form T1, they were prioritizing absolute density and size over everything. With the Dan A4H2O, that guy was just prioritizing how do we do water cooling in a smallest possible form factor. With something like the Thorzone Nanook, there's that beauty and that impressiveness of how that thing looks and is set up. The N-Case M2 doesn't have any of that. Instead of trying to work with 10 liters, it gives itself 5 more, making things straightforward and simple for everyone, making it work for more people, but less exciting for the few. So basically, I kind of want my small form factor case to be a bit like an abusive girlfriend, or a problematic one that kind of beats me up, or never stays cool, or has some crazy good looks but horrid personality. Maybe I'm just a sucker for pain. But I feel like that extremeness and the constant limitations and the challenge of working around those limitations is what makes a small form factor PC unique or fun or truly yours. And that's why I spend the same amount of money modding my Fractal Terra as I would have if I just got a Form T1.